Let Me Tell You a Story is a product of Carolina Storyteller, starring Jonathan Phoenix, written, produced, and directed by Jonathan Phoenix, edited and recorded by Jonathan Phoenix, and horribly marketed by Jonathan Phoenix. Man, I gotta hire a staff. If you'd like to support the podcast, you can go to patreon.com/Carolina Storyteller and subscribe to get exclusive content and all kinds of other neat stuff. We even have merchandise coming. Anyway, sit back and enjoy the show. Welcome back to the show, folks. I am Jonathan Phoenix, and this is Let Me Tell You a Story. Now, imagine for a minute that you have gone to visit one of these old colonial homes, built in the 1700s, has these giant columns and this large winding staircase. Now, of course, everything in these homes, once they hit the historic registry, kind of has to be kept to how it was back then. So these things aren't modernized. These staircases are the same as they were 200-300 years ago. And as you're climbing this winding staircase, going up to the third floor, you hit an uneven step and start to fall. You think, oh man, this is it. I'm going over. That's a long way down. Then suddenly a hand catches you, steadies you, allows you to regain your balance. And you turn to thank whoever it was that saved you from a long drop and a very quick stop, only to find there's no one around. That's today's story. Let's get into it. If you listened to my show before, you'd know that Georgetown was one of the largest ports on the eastern seaboard in the early days of the colonies of America. In fact, it was the second largest in South Carolina until Beaufort surpassed it some years later. And during the Revolutionary War, Georgetown was held by the British. And many of their officers and soldiers were stationed in the homes that still exist today in the center of Georgetown, just down from the town clock. Now, we've talked about this area before. The graveyard there. I'm sure you remember that episode. And right behind the graveyard is a house. In fact, it's the house that I used to inspire the main location for Redcoats when I wrote the party scene. This house stands above ground with a above ground basement and then has 3 stories on top of that. So it's really a 4-story home. And the story of the house goes a little something like this. It was during the height of the Revolutionary War that a family owning this home was told that they had to give room to a few of the officers that served in the British Army. A particular lieutenant was given a bedroom on the 3rd floor. Now, in the middle of the night one night, our old friend Francis Marion decided to raid Georgetown, as he had done so many times before. Of course, alarm bells were sounded. And because of the alarm bells sounding, this soldier, who had been resting so comfortably, was awakened from his sleep. He hurried to get dressed, knowing that a battle was about to commence with an unknown assailant. Of course, we know it was the swamp fox Francis Marion, but at the time he had no clue. He pulled on his boots, he grabbed his breeches, and he went to run down the stairs. As he came out of his room and went to go around the stairs, he was still fastening his belt and his jacket. His sword, hanging by his side, caught on to the railing, and he tripped on a loose step. He went over the railing and down 3 flights to the floor below, breaking his neck upon impact and dying. But of course, that's just where the story begins, isn't it? Those stairs were always rickety. And as the years passed, people who would be climbing the stairs for whatever reason would come up to those stairs near the 3rd floor landing and hit that one uneven step where he tripped. And of course, they would almost trip, but suddenly it would feel as if a hand caught them and set them right. This phantom hand saved lives for hundreds of years. And believe me, there have been several who have reported feeling the hand on them as they hit those steps and almost fall. The soldier who suffered such a painful death, refusing to let anyone else suffer the same fate. And, well, I'm one of them. The house was purchased by my friend Danny's father in 1989. They moved in the same time I moved into Georgetown. Me and Danny were just 2 of the only kids in the neighborhood around the same age that had a lot of the same interests. So of course we'd hang out together, we became friends. We had another friend named Peter, and we used to all get together at Danny's house and play this game called Hero Quest. Now, unfortunately, if you know anything about young preteen boys, it's playing games will keep them up all night. And we were particularly hyped up because we had just heard the announcement of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. And of course, we enjoyed Star Trek immensely because we were teen boys in the early 90s. So we were up extremely late, stoked about both getting finally to the 7th level of Hero Quest, but also the fact that we were going to have a new Star Trek series coming soon. It was around 3:30 in the morning when we heard a ruckus coming from the floor above us. We were in the 2nd floor den. His parents usually slept in the bedroom right across from where we were, but they were actually out for the night. And so the only one on the 3rd floor was his little brother and sister. We were supposed to be the ones being responsible. So of course we popped out to see what was going on. When we came out of the room, we saw what looked like someone falling from the 3rd floor all the way down to the first, in the center of the massive stairwell that was there. Danny ran upstairs to check on his brother and sister, but me and Peter, we ran downstairs to see if we could help whoever had fallen. When we got down there, there was nothing there. Absolutely nothing. We looked back up at the stairs, and Danny was looking back down over the railing from the 3rd floor. His brother and sister were both sound asleep. Nothing was disturbed. There was nothing that explained what was going on. There was nothing on the 1st floor, nothing on the 3rd floor. We couldn't explain what we saw to anybody. So we kind of kept it to ourselves. And for the longest time, it haunted all three of us. What had happened? What was it? Of course, it wasn't until much later that we realized we had just witnessed the very ghost story that we had been telling and had been told for so many years happen right before our eyes. And if we had been sleeping like we normally did at that time of night, we would have never seen it. I think that's why I like being up at night now. You never know what you're going to miss. Danny's family moved away maybe a year or two after that. Unfortunately, I had my other best friend, and we, of course, found so many more paranormal things happening in Georgetown. Now, if you go to Georgetown, this particular house is on the haunted tour, and you'll hear the story of how the soldier fell and how now his hand catches people. What you won't hear, probably, is that on some nights that soldier is still falling. It still happens. He hears the alarms, he rises from his bed, he runs to the stairs, he trips, and he falls. And I don't know if he's ever going to stop falling. But wouldn't that be a story to tell? That's it for tonight's episode, folks. I really hope you enjoyed this story. I really hope you enjoyed a little piece of my history and the history of Georgetown, where I grew up. Remember, if you like the podcast, please give us a rating, subscribe, tell your friends. You can always go to thecarolinastoryteller.com and get on our email list and check out our store where merch is going to be showing up, and you can get a piece of the good stuff while it's there. And you can go to patreon.com/Carolina Storyteller and get on an exclusives like chapter reads from one of my books, like Through the Flames, Redcoats, or the upcoming Valmont Fade to Black. Anyway, I'm Jonathan Phoenix. I'll see you next week. Hey folks, Jonathan Phoenix here, and I just want to talk to you about Atomicon. Coming up 2024, 10 years of the All Types of Media convention here in Charleston. It's going to be at the North Charleston Embassy Suites in Northwoods Boulevard. You guys can go there. You can take part in the film festival, the cosplay contest, check out the panels, see me. Yes, that's right. I'm going to be there, and I am so stoked. It is so much fun. It's going to be May 4th and 5th, 2024. Go to atomicon.org. That's atomacon.org and get your passes. And I will see you May 4th and 5th at Atomicon.